Hi everyone, welcome to the year in review. 2024 was a busy year and it started out with building a new grow center and putting that in my living room in front of my big picture window. And I bought the shelving at Home Depot. I got the lights at Princess Auto and was able to do this very economically. And it was a great spot in the living room because it was in front of me all the time and I could see what was going on with the plants. And I grew a lot of plants, probably more than what I needed to, so I will scale back this year. But I'm going to move this into the basement and set that up. You will see here too that I grew a lot of geraniums and petunias. Those are two big things on my list. And another thing was to try growing yarrow from seed, which was successful, but very finicky, as well as impatience. And I learned a lot about growing those two things, and definitely I would try them again. You just got to control yourself on the watering, as you do with all plants, and you will have success. So a few things I learned about myself during the seed starting process. Petunias were a big thing for me as well because I wanted to grow my own petunias. They're quite expensive when you buy the 6-ups or 4-ups wherever you go. So I did start over 100 petunias, and many of those ended up in the border of the cottage garden. And this particular mix was better outside in the garden than it looked in the picture here. It was very striking. I would grow it again. It was a nice mixture, and all the seeds you will see in my videos are either from Vessies, the petunias and geraniums in particular. There's a few from Johnny's in here, and there is a few from a couple other different suppliers. Next, we went into Valentine's, and Rob was nice. He knows I love miniature roses, so he bought me a miniature rose for Valentine's Day. And when it was done blooming, I don't throw it out. I take it, cut it all back, and then prepare it to go into the garden. So I start feeding it, and then out into the garden it goes with the other miniature roses. And this works great, even in my zone 3 climate. Miniature roses are usually 5, 6s, sometimes even 4s for zones. But if you protect them for the winter, you can carry them on from year to year. They are really tough. And so just save them if you get them as a gift. Hydrangea time in the spring. Well, I cut them back good. I really pruned them out to allow airflow in the middle. And you can see here, I even took them down a little bit further, and they don't look like much. They look like twigs. But you know what? That rejuvenating pruning of hydrangeas is the best thing ever because they were just so prolific when they bloomed. And these were my Annabelles. So I'm hoping to maybe move them this year again away from the fence because I want to build up that area and pull them out further, and then hopefully I can move them carefully enough that they will bloom and be beautiful again. And you can see here I was fertilizing them and adding some peonies in here into this bed as well. So lots of work. Next was the Snowball Bush pruning. Boy, that was a big video, and those shrubs really needed the pruning bad. I hadn't done it for quite a few years, and I figured I'm going to give it a shot because the blooms were less and less. And I would recommend doing it every year or every other year. Like if you see your blooms diminishing, give it a good hard pruning in the spring and it will reward you. It did not reduce the number of blooms. We then went in and we started redoing this soil in my side flower bed and in my corner with a mixture of manure, topsoil, gypsum, and 30% sand, and built this up and redid this corner. I was not happy with it, and I did that entire side of the garden. And the gypsum will help break down my terrible clay soil that I have. So you can see here I'm adding the gypsum, and then of course, typical gardener, I gotta add more plants, and I gotta change the foliage. And then I found a tie-dyed clematis, I think it was at Rona, which is formerly Lowe's. And you can see how gorgeous that is. I should have bought more of these plants. Wow, what a striking flower. So if I can find some this year, I might add them behind the hydrangeas along the really high 8-foot fence because I think they would be striking, and maybe put up some sort of wire arrangement on that fence to cover it. Next was adding the containers on the front steps and doing the window boxes. And I went bold and vibrant because I'm on the prairies and there's too much brown and white and gray and too much green with all the lawns and stuff. So I needed color. And my neighbor came over and said, I'm so glad you're putting color in and not doing a bunch of pastels because they're so beautiful and bright and the pastels just don't show up in the garden the same. So it's so nice to walk down the street and look at these. So that rewarded me and motivated me to do more color, which I'll be doing this year. I haven't picked out my color scheme, but I will soon. But you can expect purple to be in that mix this year. And this video did so well. It was one of my first container videos for the steps for curb appeal that did really, really well. I was very proud of the arrangement. And thank you everyone for watching it and taking the time to watch it and encourage me on with taking chances with color because it is worth it. And don't forget to add some white to your garden. White, white, and more white. Boy, does that draw the eye in and makes your beds look even better. If you have a bright bed, add some white and it will make it pop even more. I can't say enough about white mixed in with color and having it cascade through a flower bed and wind around in a flower bed. It's just very, very striking. I get why people like to do white gardens, white and green gardens, because it's just so prolific and stands out so nicely in the garden and in the evening. And a touch of whimsy never hurts. I like to do whimsy. It's fun. Delphinium. What can I say about Delphinium? It's been a passion of mine since I first discovered the plant, probably when I was 20 years old. And I learned how to grow them from seed out in the garden, and I've never looked back. And I can see me adding more of these to the cottage garden, which I'm going to make a cut garden over there. And there's going to be a lot of Delphinium seeding going on directly this year. But at first I want to replace those beds out there and get rid of the landscape ties and add actual raised beds that are a little bit higher, that are easier to work in, because I'm not exactly 20 anymore. But they are one of my favorite plants, and I don't think a cottage garden is a cottage garden without some Delphinium in it, because the blues are magnificent. You cannot have enough blue in your garden. It's just so striking. And I actually went and measured these, and these ones here were 7 feet tall, these Delphinium. Can you imagine what they're going to be this year, especially if I fed them, which I might actually do this year. I don't normally feed perennials, but I think I'm going to feed these because I think they need it. And maybe a little more manure and stuff in that soil because it's probably getting depleted there. It's a very narrow flower bed, long and narrow. So I'm going to feed them and hopefully they will reward me with beautiful blooms, but I can't complain about Delphinium. I can never get enough of them. So if you want to grow Delphinium, go for it. Direct seed them on top of the soil and keep them moist, and they will reward you even the first year with blooms. It works really well if you keep them moist. Because look at these splendid colors. I just can't wait for gardening season when I see these beauties. Yaro. Yaro is one of the newer perennials that I have an addiction for now. I've always grown Yaro, mostly the yellows, the goldens, and some of the reds and stuff. But now with all the oranges and peaches, whites, purples, there's actually a deep purple that I planted that have come out. I am addicted to these plants because they are drought tolerant. They love my zone 3 climate and they love pretty much every climate. If you're in a desert-like setting, grow Yaro. They're great to take inside for a cutting. And they're just stunning. Pollinators love them, and the fern-like texture of the foliage is a standout in the garden. So the more the better, and when it comes to whites, try to find a really nice crisp white, because there is some off-whites, and to me they look dirty, so look for the crisp white. The neighbor's garden, we did a tour of it before they sold the house, and actually what sold that home is the people loved the garden. They wanted the garden and they were gardeners. In fact, I can see in their living room windows, and I haven't met them yet because they haven't been around much, because I think they're redoing the inside of the house. I see a lot of plants in the window, so I'm going to try to get to know my gardeners and maybe my garden neighbors, and maybe we can have coffee and stuff, but they love the garden. And this garden is a lot of shade, and it definitely represented the owner's creativity and their design ideas. They made different levels in the garden and they added all sorts of plants, but a ton of whimsy and a lot of fruit trees in here as well. So they definitely enjoyed the garden, and I already missed them and not seeing them every day out in the yard, even in the winter. They were very good neighbors and I couldn't complain. So that was kind of sad, but I'm looking forward to meeting the new neighbors and becoming gardener friends. They were great to have around. All right, sheet mulching. I love sheet mulching with my clay soil, and because I'm a gardener that likes to make new beds and cannot get enough color in the garden, sheet mulching is my best friend now, and I've done it a lot for the beds. It does not break down in 1 year, about a year and a half here on the prairies if you keep it moist. But I like to plant immediately on top of it, which means amending soil and adding new soil and building it up and then planting. Works great, you guys. Instant flower bed, instant color if you buy mature plants. So don't be afraid to give it a go, and it'll save your back, because digging out sod, rock hard ground, is so hard on you and so labor intensive. It's almost like you're never going to get the bed done. So if you go this route and then edge it out after, you can have instant gratification by doing this. And I will be doing some more of it this year, because I am going to do the front boulevard and I'm going to overhaul some more beds at the back of the yard. And I stockpile cardboard. Now, to save money, look at furniture places, look at grocery stores, and look at hardware stores, because you will get big pieces of cardboard there from washers, dryers, sofas that will save you a lot of work. Why buy cardboard off of Amazon? Such a shame. Just make sure you remove all the tape off your cardboard before you put it in the ground, because it doesn't break down very well. And go ahead and do this, and you can stockpile it and then have it ready for the spring. I also got in, surprisingly, on a lot of really good plant sales last year. It started out bad in the spring, but of course everything's new, so they don't put them on sale. But once we hit midsummer and got into the heat of the summer, because the spring was really wet, the plants started going on sale at the big box store and even at my little hardware store where I frequent for plants that you can't get anywhere else. And I got some great varieties of plants. I got a lot of fall plants, a lot of perennials, some gaillardias, some coreopsis, blanket flowers, you name it, I found it. A lot of cone flowers. Oh my goodness, did I get the variety of colors? And near the fall, it was more grasses and stuff. So, if you want to fill your garden up, do your annuals and stuff in the spring. Buy those things that you get in the spring to fill your garden, and then wait till the sales and then stock up on the plants to fill those bare areas in the garden. Here was a bed that I sheet mulched as well and planted last year. This was all new. Rob did the curves for me. Man, he's good at doing curves. I suck at it. And he made a beautiful curved bed. I planted a hydrangea tree, which I got on sale at Home Depot at the end of the year to add color. And I'm hoping to add some clematis and some honeysuckle vines to the fence now, while I wait for the hydrangeas that are planted back there to fill in the gap. But I think that'll be gorgeous. And I might put some big trellises in there. Not to take any excitement away from the videos coming up, but I just kind of want to share with you my creative vision for some of this area to make it stand out. When you revitalize beds, sometimes, you got to think outside of the box and change things up. Don't do the same all the time. Try different levels, try different heights, try gardening vertically, not just horizontally. Hydrangeas, these are the ones in the earlier videos that I cut back, and look at those Annabelles. I love Annabelles. Their heads are so big and fluffy. They are gorgeous. And later on I took these, I cut them all, and I'm lucky I cut them before the fence fell on them, and I spray painted them and used them for fall arrangements. So very versatile plant. You can also dry them and keep them inside and not spray them, or spray them, your choice. But the other thing that's good for hydrangeas is, because they are needy when it comes to water, mulching them up is a really good idea. It really helps preserve that water and moisture in them, because they will flop if they don't get enough water. Especially when you newly plant them, you got to keep an eye on that. Once they're established, they don't do that so much, but those were in full west sun. Here's another bed that I redid. And you can see here, I'm putting a lot of those bargain perennials in here. And I went hard on Hookas, big time. I love the black Hookas and all the different colors. I like the caramel or caramel, depending how you pronounce it. I just love them, and I will be adding more of those this year to the garden too as I redevelop the new areas. They were beautiful in the garden, and then I really like the black heucheras with the fall colors of the Heliopsis, Gaillardias, blanket flowers, and Coreopsis. Those bright orange, yellows, and reds with black heucheras, or the reds heucheras, are stunning mixed together. I can't wait to see everything this year and how vibrant it is. I just crossed my fingers everything made it through the winter. With the snow that we've had now, it should have helped to cover them in so that they are protected, especially with new plants. But these are hardy, drought tolerant plants, so they should be fine. And I mulched up the heucheras really well. I've really learned how to manage those heucheras and be successful with them. You know, as gardeners, we learn as we go along, and what works for me may not work in another climate. So I will share my tips. Just remember that my climate's a zone 3 and it's a cold climate. So sometimes you have to do things differently if you're in a warmer climate. But a lot of the same tips and tricks I share with you will work for you. And the color combinations, of course, should work for you as well. And you can always change up the plants if you're looking for a certain color combination to work in your environment. But I will share with you everything I learn as I go along and my failures as well, so that you can also learn from me and maybe don't do what I do, and the things that work, then give them a go. Well, here was the Alberta clipper that came through in the summer. Did a lot of damage on the street. A lot of big poplars and trees were snapped. For me, it was the fence that was basically blown right over on top of my hydrangeas, which I had just done a video on and pruned. So sad. And then as we head into fall, we're now covering over the miniature roses and protecting them for winter. I used all natural mulch this year on it that I found, like leaves and grass in the garden, to protect them. And then covering them over the tarp and putting boards on it to hold that tarp down works really good. You just want to make sure you keep the wind from blowing underneath that tarp and lifting it, because wind on the prairies, cold wind, is the worst thing for tender plants. And then finally, we did a tour of Dutch growers and marveled at the glory of all their poinsettias and all their plants for Christmas. Beautiful. This shot of color just makes me think of spring, and I want to get out in the garden when I see this. I love the pink poinsettias that they had and the different varieties. The Mickey Mouse ears one was hilarious. I don't know if I would want that plant, but it was unique with the round leaves. But this color combination is so striking at Christmas, and it really got me into the spirit. And that's what I aim to do with my videos for you guys. I want to motivate you to be creative and be inspired and be willing to try different things in your garden or in your home for plants. There's the Mickey Mouse one right there, or mouse ears. And give it a go and try different color combinations too. If you try pastels, try a little color in a corner of your yard and see if you like it. I mean, we each have our colors that we like and that we don't like, so don't be afraid to try new things. And as well, here is winter again. So you can see why I love color, because, you know, basically from the end of November, it used to be October, end of November, we'll say right now because it's been warmer, until the end of March is white and gray. Although beautiful with the sky and everything, it's darn cold here on the prairies, going into the -40s with the wind chill -50s. And I get really tired of cleaning up snow and dealing with the cold. So I look forward to spring and get the itch pretty much once seed starting season starts, which is going to be here in another month. But you can see all the snow we got here, and this is still only part of the snow. There's a lot more coming in January and February. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one, everyone. Thanks for watching. Bye.